All right, before we get to John Fitzgerald, let's look at this new poll from Resolve that shows the Voice is heading towards defeat, with only 31% of Australians expecting the yes vote to succeed. Just 48% said they would vote yes, down slightly from 49% last month and 58% in April. It comes as an Australian Population Research Institute survey reveals 1/3 of Australians feel threatened by what they call moral guardians, a small influential group of voters with highly progressive views who try to silence Australians with opposing views. We saw the effects of some attempts to silence no voters in last night's Sky News documentary.
My grandmother, who we're going to speak to today, I witnessed her being punched at a Land Council royalties meeting. I've witnessed her being threatened in this community. I'm sorry. And now she can't even talk. Now her voice is not being heard. I've shared her photo on social media of blood streaming down her face.
And Liberals for Yes leader and Liberal MP Julian Leeser joins me now. Thank you very much for your time.
Great to be with you, Sharri.
Now, that was obviously a very balanced documentary last night, but what did you make of some of those really traumatic claims that no voters are being silenced in this way?
Well, I've said right from the start of this debate that it's important that we realise that this is a matter of which reasonable Australians can disagree, and that it's important that those of us on the Yes campaign understand and listen to the concerns of those who doubt, and those on the No campaign also understand the appreciation and aspirations of Indigenous Australians and other people for this to make a real difference. I've called out unfair treatment, racism that's been directed at Aboriginal people in this campaign, whether it's Warren Mundine, and I was very sad to hear, disgusted to hear of some of the racist comments that Warren has suffered, that Jacinta's suffered, that Karen Little is suffering, and that on the other side people like Thomas Mayo and Linda Burney have suffered. There's no place for this. No Aboriginal Australian is on the ballot paper. We've all got to tread lightly in relation to this debate. This debate's about changing the Constitution. The focus should be on the constitutional provisions and whether this can make a difference to the lives of Indigenous Australians, and I believe it can, and that's why I'm voting yes.
Now, one figure that you probably would ordinarily agree with is the former Prime Minister John Howard. He's entered the debate in a strong way today on the front page of the paper, outlining the reasons why he disagrees with the Voice. He thinks it will divide Australia and many other reasons. What's your response to his position? Well,
the first thing I want to do is wish John Howard a happy 84th birthday.
Of course. It's his birthday today.
He is our greatest Prime Minister, a revered figure of the Liberal Party and a great friend and mentor of mine. He and I have a different view on this issue. I respect that John Howard, back in 1999, put constitutional recognition to the Australian people. Nearly 60% of us sadly voted against it. I also respect the fact that John Howard always took a practical approach in relation to Indigenous affairs. One of the reasons that I'm on the Yes campaign for this issue is that, firstly, this particular provision, this particular section 129 that we're voting for, the recognition of the Voice, accords with the desires of Indigenous people, and it provides something practical. It provides us an opportunity to recognise Indigenous people, to provide for a body to listen to Indigenous people about the policies and laws that affect them, in order to help us close the gap in education, employment, in housing and in healthcare. And that's important because it's got both a symbolic and a practical effect.
Yeah. Look, the Prime Minister has been under a great deal of pressure over the model he chose. You initially disagreed with the model that Labor was going with. Do you think if he had just stuck with Indigenous recognition in the Constitution, we'd be looking at a 90% or so yes vote?
No, I don't think that's necessarily true. And as I say, back in 1999, nearly 60% of Australians voted no to recognise Indigenous people in the Constitution. But there are always people who will regard themselves as guardians of the Constitution who will find fault with a particular proposal. This is a proposal we've got on the table now. It provides an opportunity to recognise Indigenous Australians, and it provides for a practical benefit, which is listening to Indigenous people about the policies and laws that affect them.
Do you think it is on track to fail, though? That's what it looks like at the moment.
Look, I think the most interesting thing in that Resolve poll that you quoted was actually the undecided figure. There are 22% of Australians who haven't made up their mind yet.
Yeah.
And I suspect some of both that yes and no vote is soft. So it's really the job of the campaigns going forward to engage with and convince Australians that this is worthwhile doing. And that's what I've been doing. I've been doing it in my electorate, at forums, in local community halls. I did it in Wagga the other day, and I'll be travelling to other parts of the country to encourage Australians that this is a change worth pursuing.
All right. Well, thank you for stopping by here on your travels. Thank you very much.